What's up, everybody? It's LG here, and welcome to episode 200 of the First Mint. Although we've been doing this for over 2 years now, today's recording kind of felt like the start of something new. I don't know. I felt kind of nervous and I felt kind of rusty talking to the real Phil D about what's going on in NFT sports in our little corner of the world here. It's not that we didn't have a great conversation. We do, and you'll listen to all 90 minutes of it coming up. But it felt a little bit different. It is unlike other stuff that I'd done, and also a little intimidating to say, like, hey, this is going to be our weekly format from now on. But again, it's something that I think feels very natural for us and something that makes sense, given how long we've come, I guess, since the start of all this. What you're going to hear today is us really kind of chatting about a bunch of different topics. We talk about Dave Feldman, who recently just announced this morning that he's going to be leaving, that he has left Dapper Labs and won't be working there anymore. We talk about the NBA TopShot lawsuit. We talk about the PGA launching its first NFT project this week on DraftKings Reignmakers. And at the end, I give a little anecdote about how I was recently timed out on Discord in the MLB Sorare Discord for reasons that, well, I guess if you listen, you'll hear a little bit more about it. We also spend the first 15 minutes honestly talking about what it's been like to do 200 episodes of the First Mint, because it has been a while, and it's something that started, without really necessarily a certain direction or certain objective, just something that started for fun. And now 2 years in, I really feel like we're actually kind of finding what makes sense, especially with the revamp of the podcast starting this week and kind of going forward, especially across all our channels. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you've been listening to us this whole time, thank you for listening. And if you're just coming back now, well, man, it's great to have you back. Or if you're brand new, hell yeah, welcome to the show. This is what it's like. And I hope you enjoy episode 200 of the First Mint.
Search is over, now welcome to First Mint. Looking for NFT content, look no further, cause this is it. From TopShot, the blockchain, they got the data chops, analysis, and pack drops, the show's equator hot. LG and Phil D, the best amongst others. Best brothers that happen to ball since the Ball Brothers. So settle in, cause it's time for the best show. Ayo Quad, who we reppin'? First Mint. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, episode 200 of the First Mint. Phil D, what's up?
Whoa! Episode 200. Are you kidding me, dude? There's no way. How has it been 200 episodes?
It's honestly, if you add up how many like spaces, stages, every like live shows and everything, it's like 300 or 400. Like it's way more stuff. Like there's some weeks where we run spaces like every day. You know what I mean? So it's like in terms of like official episodes, I think it's 200. But honestly, in terms of times that we've actually done stuff together and like everything that's First Mint, it's way more in just 2 years. So
that is crazy. I think that deserves a pretty big congrats. I love how when you post about this, everyone starts congratulating me too, as if I was like in all 200 episodes of the podcast. When this is indeed like only the third or fourth time I make an appearance on the podcast. I just love it because people don't really know, right? They know you and they know you're the mastermind for the most part. But the people who just the kind of casuals who just watch and listen, they don't really know. I think they think, that kind of tells you who listens, who doesn't. Because when they're congratulating me and you, that means they don't listen at all. You know what I mean? Right?
I think it's because there's, yeah. But honestly, if you want to talk about like quickly about the history of like 200 episodes in the last like 2 years, basically, it's like let's be real here. Like most people listened in the first couple months in terms of like all-time listeners.
That's what I mean.
Just like, we still have a lot of really great listeners and community members now, but in terms of like the difference of like how many people in the broader space listened in like, let's say the first half of 2021 versus all the time since, it's pretty disproportionate. And for most of that, like, I think a lot of people watch the live show really early on. Like some of those live shows, especially back in the day with Plunge, like some of those, we had like 1,000 people watch for 2 hours. Like on Friday nights, which is insane to think about now that people would spend their Friday night. 1,000 people will listen to us for 3 hours straight on a Friday night.
Well, I mean,
but it was pandemic.
A big part of that was pandemic, but not just pandemic. LG, you know what the magic word was back there or back then when you wanted 1,000 people to tune in or listen. The magic word that starts with a G would automatically like double or triple your viewership or people who would listen. And if you had no giveaways that night, you'd be like, okay, where the hell is everybody? As soon as you would say you're giving away an S2, Jalen
LeBron,
Brunson,
no
like
look.
whatever.
Yeah.
No, don't even not
Yeah,
even
no,
LeBron.
you're
Man.
right.
It could
Yeah.
be anything,
Yeah.
right? It could be anything. Seriously, even a Cool Cats. If you said Cool Cats moment back then, you were giving that away, you easily had 1,000 people watching the live show, and we noticed that. We found it was pretty fun, right? Lots of giveaways, and then you still have the random people who are DMing saying, "Hey, I won a prize like 2 years ago. Where is it?" Like, come on, man, get out of here. Seriously, who are you?
It's true.
I remember those.
It's true. We still do get those. Anyways, those were good days, and I feel like today, episode 200 is like I don't want to say like a reboot because I feel like I've rebooted the show a few times, but just to be like really kind of like open up about this before we actually get into the topics today, which are really great. And there's a lot going on in like NFT sports right now. I think for a long time, we started off as First Mint as like, okay, TopShot is like literally the hottest thing that I've ever been a part of. And we wanted to cover that exclusively. And at the end of 2021 is like, okay, well, there's other stuff now. UFC, NFL is starting up. And people are kind of shifting their focus, not just away from TopShot, but like away from like sports in general. So like, let's zoom out. And I think like over that time when that started to happen, like me personally, I was like, okay, what do we do with the show? Right? Do we keep talking about TopShot? Do we zoom out to all this other stuff? We did zoom out. We monetized by working with like promotional partners and doing a bunch of fun stuff, community stuff. But I think that kind of set us into a bit of a no man's land of like, well, what is the show? Right? Because the show never started as like, okay, let's start really organically, coupled new listeners every time. And eventually we grow into like, here's the big vision. It was like, no, I just started it because I thought it was hilarious. I thought like 4 people would listen to it. And then we had like thousands of listeners like a couple weeks later. Like it just exploded, which was nice. But at the same time, didn't have this kind of like normal, slow kind of organic growth like I think a lot of other shows do. So what I want to say is that coming back to this, where weekly it's you and I talking about like the issues of the day and kind of, giving our thoughts on it and connecting with the community, I think is the best version of what all of this could be. We'll see if people want to listen, but I think people have requested to have you back on the show for a long time. They like us talking to each other. So I feel good about this direction. And also I feel like this is going to be the easiest show to make yet, because I feel like you and I can talk for hours every time we talk about, and like actual sports, NFT sports has like regenerative storylines. Like every week, every day, there's like new stuff to talk about. So I feel good about the direction. And for everybody who's been listening so far, who's still here, or who's coming back for the first time and who knows how long, welcome back and happy to be here. And Phil, we're going to do this once a week, just like the old days.
Wow, that is some monumental stuff right there, LG. That is the best direction you have taken out of all the directions you've taken in the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
In those 200 episodes, this is by far the best direction you have decided to take. This is going to be wild. And I have to say, we are recording this at a time where kind of all hell is breaking loose, with certain projects. I mean, just the tweet that you put out previewing this episode, some of the responses that we got in terms of what we should discuss. And some of the DMs I got in response, I got so many DMs saying, hey, listen, you need to bring this up. I will tell you the scoop on this. All right. You need to talk about this. I'm like, holy shit. A lot going on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily know about or see, which I love that kind of stuff. And you know it. Like a lot of stuff I got was the whoa type of stuff. Like, wow.
So we put out a tweet Saturday morning, like 2 days ago, that's basically which is the one project you want the real Phil D to talk about on the First Mint, which is just this like hilarious engagement farming style tweet, just to see. And this is like, even before writing the tweet, Phil, I could have told you which projects we're going to post. Like, it's like, the ones that have strong communities who want to get their project out there. It has like 50 comments on it. And shout out to the people who, like, when they see us post something like that, they come on in and they want to pump the thing that they have, or the thing that they're really passionate about. So, but yeah, love some of the responses. I love some of the some of the responses are like, Metaverse Football League, which I know you're a part of, Play Swoops, Martian Premier League, Wieners, which was like huge. We still don't know if you're the founder of Wieners or not, but many believe so. Knights of Degen, Rumble Kongs, like a lot of the people that we get usually in our responses for stuff like that. Some people did kind of troll saying like, okay, TopShot or Shot to the Moon, which is also kind of a defunct project. But lots to talk about for sure. I don't know if we'll touch on any of those projects today, but good to know where the community is at and what they want to know a little bit more about, or they want to see the project that they're into get featured a little bit more.
Yeah, I've never had so many Donkey Kong looking PFPs follow me before, all in a one shot. That was just wild. That was like the old days when
Donkey
we'd have a
Kong.
live show. You'd come out from a live show having like what, 100 or 200 new follows instantly from a live show, right? And it was just everyone wanted to know what we were saying. Everybody wanted to hear what we were saying. And when you said it, they wanted to hear more, so they would follow you on social media. But the last year or so, it's been like a reverse effect. The followers, like all the fake accounts and all that, are getting banned. And my account is just going down and down and down and down. I'm like, okay, who the hell were these people? And what kind of accounts were following us? Like, seriously, man. Were they all burner
I don't
accounts
know.
and everyone just got rid of them, or what happened?
I've been talking about this with some other social, like with other content people who have social accounts, and there's definitely been like a bit of a purge in the NFT space. Specifically, like a lot of different bigger NFT influencers have complained about them losing follower accounts. I think honestly, there's a long time. I think a huge amount of Twitter is bots. I think sometimes you go into NFT spaces and there's like 3,000 people there. It's like, no, I really don't believe it's 3,000 people listening to that. Like, I don't know if people are that engaged. I think a lot of it are really bizarre accounts. Honestly, even some of the new people that follow us, I click on the accounts and I'm like, there's no way that this is like a real person. We like, like First Mint loses like on average, like maybe 5 to 10 to 15 followers a day. But not like, I don't think it's because of the content. Like, sure, maybe some people unfollow us, but it's definitely like, I think it's accounts getting purged. I also kind of follow the TopShot account because we grew at the same time. And I think that they kind of have like the same trajectory where it's like their account is kind of like hasn't really grown in a while because it loses followers as quickly as it gains them. Right.
Really?
So
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was anyone outside
Yes.
of me, really, because I don't really follow
No.
them. I'm just like, all right, I don't
It's
know what
not you.
happened.
It's
I
not
must
you.
have had
I
fake
think
followers this whole time.
Yeah, I think Twitter kind of has like a really strange bot problem that is probably takes a lot to kind of understand and to weave through. And I think basically when certain topics, hashtags, and like let's call them like little ecosystems of accounts and topics get hot, I think a lot of the bots are driven to that, and it kind of pumps the accounts. Like there was like literally a point during the early days of First Mint where overnight there was literally like, at one point we started growing like a lot, a couple hundred followers a day. Then at one point 1,000, and as TopShot blew up because we were covering it. But there was literally one night where I went to bed and we had 26,000 followers. And the next morning we had 37,000. And that was one of the only times I was like, you know what? I get it. Like what we're posting is popular, but there's no way, there's no way 11,000 people in the 12 hours since I was at the computer clicked follow. Like there's just no chance.
You are
so I don't know.
All the haters right now. You are fueling their fire where they've been saying this for years.
I've never denied it. And honestly, I wish I was smart enough to say that I went and went to the bot farms or whatever and bought a bunch of those. I wish I was smart enough to say that I did something like that, but I don't even know where to start with that. I think it's just like, I think there's a lot of Twitter works in mysterious ways. And it is what it is. So don't worry. It's not just your follower account going down,
but
it's ours. But Phil D, listen. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say something about that. It's kind of weird because if you go back and look at my history of Twitter and the stuff I used to say compared to what I say now on Twitter, it almost had a counter effect on how I behave on Twitter. When I got all those followers and I passed 10,000, I was way more careful. And not that I ever said anything bad. You could never go back. I've never deleted old tweets. You could never go back and find, some crazy stuff like you do with some of these athletes where you find racist stuff and all that. There was never any of that stuff, and I never crossed the line. But like I used to tweet the mayor of Toronto and, I'd be like, fix the fucking roads or something, like crazy stuff like that. Or I'd go after all sorts of people. But now it had kind of a, Twitter, the platform Twitter is made for you to kind of express yourself and say what you want to say and have an audience or whatever. But it had a counter effect on me when I gained all those followers, because now all of a sudden I was like, okay, hold on. I got to kind of be careful what I say here. And I can't just kind of go off like I used to. And I find that really weird, right? Because I started when I started the First Mint, I had 500 and something followers, 600 followers. Now I have 11,000, and that this is 2 years later. But if you go back and look at my pre-NFT, space tweets and stuff like that, there's some pretty funny stuff, and there's some pretty wild stuff that I've kind of I haven't held back. I just don't tweet as much as I used to. And I always think like, man, I don't know. Can I say this? Should I say this? It's kind of playing mind games with me to have all these followers. But now the followers are now that the floodgates are open and people are just leaving. Maybe I'll
Oh,
go
you're
back
going to
to the
start
old
saying
tweets.
crazy shit again. You're
Well,
saying
the
you're going to
mayor's
start
gone now, man. I'm pissed. Like, honestly, I wanted to tweet him a couple of times, but now he's gone. Like, he's gone. He had a
Okay,
crazy sex scandal, and he's gone.
The crazy sex scandal. Okay, so
He
for
did.
context, people don't understand what Phil's talking about. Years ago, pre-First Mint, pre like NFTs, crypto, Phil would rocket launch these tweets, specifically at like 7 a.m. his time when he'd be hitting the road to go to work, and it'd be a screenshot of Google Maps, and it'd be like the highways in Toronto, and it would be a sea of red, just like the worst gridlock traffic. And then Phil would tweet at John Tory, the mayor, being like, John Tory, what the F are you doing? This is
Always.
a total disgrace. Traffic is a mess. You promised that this would be better. So yeah, it was pretty enraged.
Stop
But they
going
made
to
sense.
like
They made
rabbit
sense.
fundraisers and get your ass out there and fix the streets. And now he's gone. I can't do that anymore. We don't have a mayor anymore. Party's over.
He's gone. Yeah. He slept with somebody that wasn't his wife during the pandemic, and for out of nowhere, like 2 weeks ago, he was like, "Okay, by the way, I slept with somebody else, so I'm not the mayor anymore." And he just he must have been blackmailed or something like that.
So the Toronto Star, which is a
yeah.
local newspaper, called him the night before. Sorry, they sent a letter to his office. Is what happened, and they said, "We know about this, and just to give you a heads up as a courtesy, we are running the story tomorrow that we know you've been hooking up with somebody else that is not your wife, and we will be telling everyone tomorrow." So what does John Tory do? He comes out that very same night, as if he's some honorable guy admitting his mistakes, and says, "Hey, listen, I'm resigning as the mayor. All right, I hooked up with someone that would never ever hook up with me in the real world. Okay, and I'm out of here." And then he didn't resign though. He stayed, and people are like, "No, don't resign. Everybody does that kind of stuff. Just stick around, man. We like you." And then finally, people are like, "What is he doing? Why has he not resigned yet? This is a disgrace. What is he doing?" So then finally, he left, and he's gone, and now we don't have a mayor. And now you got all sorts. Everyone's saying Drake should be the mayor. You've got all sorts of people saying all these celebrities. You've got that crazy anti-vax guy, Chris Sky, who's known all over Canada for being arrested like 5,000 times. He says he's running for mayor and he's gonna win. So this could be a real shit show here in the next couple months in Toronto. We'll see what happens.
Man, look at that. Look at that. We're 15 minutes into the new show, and at no point have we talked about NFTs or anything. We didn't know. This is how quickly things can spiral. I gotta keep us on track here. I feel like this is what used to happen on live shows. We'd get a guest on like Arsenic.
4-hour
we start
live
talking
shows
about like dick butts and shit like that. And yeah, exactly. It would just go like way out of control. People are gonna I don't know if people want something. Maybe they want us to rant about something like this. Maybe the show won't be about NFTs in the future, but we can try that. All right, Phil, we have a lot of stuff to actually talk about today. As of literally like 2 hours ago, we got the news that Dave Feldman, who was one of the most well-liked Dapper employees in the community, who came from the NFL, that he has left. So we're going to chat about that. We're also going to touch on last week's major bombshell news, which we covered pretty heavily, the lawsuit against NBA TopShot from 2 years ago, but that's rearing its head now. Also, we're going to talk about some of the bigger NFT drops coming this week, notably the PGA coming to DraftKings Reignmakers. And then if we have time at the end, I'm going to tell you a little story about how I got timed out in the MLB Sorare Discord the other day, which was a total disgrace, but not a disgrace on my part. Okay, it was a disgrace on somebody else's part. But if we have time, we'll tell that story because I've never been timed out from the Discord, so I do want to save time for that. But Phil, I
can't wait.
Dave
I really
Feldman,
can't wait to hear this. Seriously.
Yeah, I know you gotta hear it.
I can't wait
Dave
because
Feldman,
I know when LG gets in rumbles, LG gets in rumbles, and it is not great. I know this.
Phil, we want to talk about Phil. You think Phil got enraged at the traffic? It's like I'm not mad at traffic, but when somebody puts me in that zone, I definitely am that, if not way worse. So I don't leave tweets about traffic. I go in and try and destroy Discords, and that's kind of what happened the other day. So, anyways, we'll talk about that. That's the end of the show. Let's talk about something that's kind of fun and silly. Let's talk about something kind of sad for all of us, especially all of us who are big fans of the stuff that Dapper's built, and also NFL All Day, and honestly of this individual. Just a couple hours ago this morning, the big news was Dave Feldman, who was the GM of NBA TopShot, or no, he wasn't the GM of NBA TopShot. He came in to be head of marketing for NBA TopShot back in like April 2021. He brought in the Avengers of marketing, where he recruited AJ Curry and Malik and all these other people from other sports leagues that he worked with before, set up the whole marketing team, was the GM of NFL All Day, as well as probably playing a lot of different roles in Dapper. Posted on Twitter, Dave Feldman wrote, "What a bittersweet post to write. After 2 incredible years, I recently decided to leave Dapper Labs. It's been the honor of a lifetime to work on such an innovative set of products at the absolute cutting edge of technology and sports. I'm so grateful to Roham for believing in me, continuously challenging me with more responsibility, both in overseeing our marketing and as GM of our biggest businesses, while also being a thought partner whenever asked. The future of Dapper Labs is so incredibly bright. He wrote a couple other messages saying, more pretty generic stuff when people leave, which is good. It is a nice message of saying he's going to miss a lot of his colleagues and he's worked with great people. He also wrote, I wrote that, when I left the NFL to join Dapper, I wrote that I was leaving my dream job for a new dream job. I can say without a sliver of doubt that Dapper exceeded even my wildest dreams. Phil D, first take on this one before I give my opinion.
Okay. Who wrote that for him? Seriously. And is this the letter that they're having them send out? Like, seriously. The part of that statement, and I really like Dave. We've had Dave on the show many times. Although I'm still bitter that the NFL Toronto party never happened, and I was all worked up for that. It just vanished. We never heard about that after.
That's right.
The only part of that statement that kind of bothers me, because we keep seeing this now in the NFT world, is the future at Dapper Labs is very bright. Okay. If you're leaving Dapper Labs, how bright can the future be? I don't understand why we keep reading, hey, I've had a great time working at so-and-so. Their future is unbelievably bright, but I'm out of here. I'm not doing anything else right now. I'm going to sit on the sidelines. I'll just start my own ventures later on, but I'm not staying there. But the future is amazingly bright. I don't get that. Something's off there. And, I've been asking LG for months now, who the hell is in charge at NBA TopShot? Not that I have problems. I'm one of the only people actually enjoying the platform right now because I'm just collecting what I want to collect. I actually finally qualify for a lot of the challenges. I'm doing my own thing and having a really good time, and I'm not spending too much money to the point where I'm not even looking to make money. I'm looking to just collect. But I have things that I want to be confident that, it's in the right direction and that someone's in charge. I like that. I like the idea of having someone in charge. When we had Jacob, we could bitch to Jacob about anything we wanted. Not that he would always answer them. He had the office hours going and all that. But at least we knew we could tweet someone and be like, Jacob, what the F, man? What's going on here? Right? But back to my point is that the last 2 or 3 months, I've asked, and you can check our Discord, I've asked maybe 500 times. I will ask it 5 times a week. I have asked, who is in charge at NBA TopShot? Now that Janie has vanished, okay? And the answer I keep getting is either I don't know or Dave Feldman from NFL All Day is now in charge for everything at TopShot in terms of being the GM. So now the so-called person in charge is gone, okay? Now this person is also gone from NFL All Day. So where do we stand? What is going on at Dapper Labs right now? Seriously, there needs, and I said this to Dumbo on one of our spaces, because Dumbo seems to be the only Dapper Labs employee left after this recent exodus and everything that's been going on. Okay. I told him, I don't know who you speak to, but you need to find a way to have this entire whatever's going on addressed by the higher ups, which is Roham or whoever else wants to step on to the stage and address the nation, the Dapper Labs nation that has been invested in by so many people since NBA TopShot, because it's not just TopShot, right? There's a lot of other projects under the Dapper Labs umbrella who are now kind of wondering what is going on. Is Dapper just going to vanish? Like, what's the story? And it's concerning for me. So I think there needs to be a state of the union of some kind where Roham goes in front of everybody and explains what the heck is going on. I don't know why Dave left. Well, he needs to figure it out. He needs to figure it out. Yeah. This is his company. He needs to figure this out, man. He cannot keep going like this. If I didn't know that Dave voluntarily left until you said that right now. I also did not know that AJ voluntarily left, which I saw in our Discord. And I'm not even sure if that's true because we heard of all the layoffs at Dapper, right? So I figured they were maybe part of those layoffs. But now I'm being told that they both left on their own terms, which for me makes it even worse. I'm not going to lie. That makes it worse for me that these two individuals who were respected by the community and loved their jobs at Dapper doing what they did decided to voluntarily leave, right? Like what's going on there? What is happening at Dapper? Why'd you leave?
So just the context there, because we saw some screenshots from this. AJ, who was also like, I guess the community and kind of marketing lead for All Day, I guess like working, I guess directly under Dave or with him on that for a long time, and who, when the NFL season started, was like, we had so much fun in the Discord. She was on Spaces all the time, really well loved community member, and also like Dave basically recruited her from the NFL to come work at Dapper. She was posting literally this morning in the Discord that she also voluntarily left, because last week, at the same time as the lawsuit news dropped, which we'll talk about the lawsuit in a second, it was also revealed that Dapper had laid off another 20% of the staff, right? Which comes after a 22% reduction in staff back in November, which has been normal across the industry. Everybody's laying people off, so it's not uncommon in tech if you zoom way out. But she said that she left voluntarily. So I agree with you, Phil. It does leave kind of like a strange kind of image when you have people that are really key people on a really key product. Like NFL All Day is a monstrous product for Dapper, right? Like the NFL is bigger than everything else, or at least in the US, right? Which is their prime market. That has the chance to be like the flagship product. Obviously, TopShot, I think, has kind of like been the lead for a long time, but NFL All Day, I think all of us feel like, has the most potential reach, because the NFL is just so freaking massive. When you have two key people there kind of leave on their own power, it is a little bit strange. What I will say is that, listen, in startup life, this is normal, right? People leave. The companies have to change, like drastically change how they're doing things, because like startup companies operate completely different than like sports leagues. Like startups basically operate of like every couple of months you try and do one thing to see if it works for growth. And if it doesn't, then you go and try something else. Like that's literally like every startup does that. That's like, okay, let's build this. Does it work? Yes, no, it doesn't. Okay, get rid of the team, reformat, let's try something else. Like that's what growth is. And like Dapper and Sorare and everybody else, DraftKings, like their prime objective right now is growth. They want to grow in users. So, I could also understand that it's like, if, even though, maybe Dave and AJ and everybody else who maybe, I don't know how many other people left voluntarily, but if, or people that were let go as well, the people that left, like Dave and AJ, like if they don't feel like they were doing a good job of that, or they were, able to do the job that they wanted, I can understand, because the goal without a doubt is growth. It's not user satisfaction. The user set, like this, I think what people don't understand about like the Dapper products is that it's like, those products are not trying to make us happy right now, because what they've done so far is not growing. Right. So it's like, most people there, it's like their objective is not just to make us happy, just to be like, okay, community, do you like this new challenge or this new feature or not? It's like, no, they need to fucking grow, man. Each of those products has like under 5,000 weekly users. Like that's not, you need to grow a lot more. So I don't know how that necessarily correlates back to Dave and AJ, but if they weren't given a chance to do what they were trying to do, or it just was made clear to them that it's like their efforts weren't working or whatever that is, then I can understand it being like a really hard situation over there. But yeah, I don't know. It's
another issue. Yeah, another issue I see is that a lot of people I've talked to that were previous Dapper Labs employees, or that were employed by Dapper Labs run projects, was that they're, and it's interesting because you just mentioned this, is that their ideas and their leadership was not being utilized, and their ideas were not being heard in terms of how to increase a user base, right? And I could see that, because for me, again, I'm still confused as to how someone who works for Dapper Labs and an NFL project or an NBA project would and we've talked to Dave before many times, he's a big sports fan, and I know it meant a lot to him. If you were leaving for a job somewhere else, a much better job, I would completely understand, right? But if you're just leaving and I'll figure it out later, for me is always a huge concern, because, naturally I've been at my 9-to-5 job. I've been at my 9-to-5 job for, over 12 years now, the same one. And I'm not going to lie, there are times where I've said, hey, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm out of here. Like, I'm sick of the people. I'm sick of the management. And these are natural thoughts. They don't stay very long, but you will run into roadblocks along the way. And
that's normal. Nobody's job is 100% happiness. It's work. It's not happiness,
but at no point did I say, all right, well, I'm just going to leave this place and I'll figure out what I'm doing next. I always said, you know what? I'm still okay. It's still paying the bills. I still kind of like what I'm doing. It's exciting. It's fun sometimes. I have a lot of friends around. I'm part of the community at work and all that. I do a lot of stuff. So until something better comes around, I'm going to stick it out. But it never got that bad where I said, you know what, I'm going to leave and figure it out later. So again, for me, it's concerning. It really is that they both left. I did not know that. Like, for me, that's concerning. I'd like to know more. I really would like to know more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're barred from saying anything, and
Sure,
you're saying that like
absolutely.
Dave's message is like pre-written. Well, it's like he has to be nice. Like I don't think like that's career suicide at this point. Like not just to leave your job when you don't have anything else lined up, but then to go out into like a, whatever, like
Yeah.
go down burning or whatever. What's the right
Like
expression for that?
a
Anyways,
fire Roham Twitter account or something like that. Yeah, like that one guy there that's been around forever
no,
now.
to say mean things on your way out is like,
No,
well,
I
you're
know.
never gonna get hired again if you do that kind of shit. You know what I mean? So it's like you don't want to do that. Dave's a really classy guy. It's AJ as well. You know, wonderful,
For
wonderful
sure.
people. So naturally, they're not going to say anything. You know, they're going to be barred from saying how they really feel because they want to get another job. What I was saying too about the startup thing, I think as well, Phil, is that it's like working at a startup like Dapper is insanely different than working at an established place like the NFL, right? It's like that, like you are talking completely different ecosystems. And I'm not saying that as a critique towards them and like they should have known that. That's not what I mean at all. I mean in the way that, 2 years ago when Dapper was trying to hire up and they got the huge round of investment, they were specifically looking for people who had experience working at sports leagues or betting books, right? Look at all their hires. People from the NFL, MLB, NBA, I don't know, NHL maybe, people that run events, people done marketing, and then also all their customer service people are people from FanDuel, DraftKings, like Janie, which we'll talk about in a second, also had been like head of growth at like other internet properties like DraftKings, EA, Reddit. Like they looked for a very specific kind of person and experience. The thing is that a lot of those places are like incredibly well established and are not going to be places where they had to pivot what they were doing every 6 months. Like the NFL didn't roll out a completely new like ticket selling strategy every single season. The product sold itself, right? So it's like it's a vastly different experience, and I think we kind of I don't know. I'm not saying that's anybody's fault, but I think it's just something to acknowledge that it's like literally that's like as different a job as you could get, even though it seems very similar.
I agree.
Phil,
I
let's talk about this GM model, right? Because like a year and a half ago, or less maybe, Dapper rolled out. They're like, listen, for all our sports properties, we're gonna have a general manager, right? Like that's how we're gonna do it. It's very sports, which is cool, I guess. It's like okay, or 2 years ago, I don't know how long this was, but they said like it's gonna be a general manager, just like sports. It's gonna be like a sports team. And the first person they did that with was NBA TopShot. It wasn't Janie Parasini, it was Tristan Radink, who's somebody that we never heard from again after that first blog post. It was like NBA TopShot has a GM. It's this dude from Saskatchewan in Canada, which is a place in Canada. Shout out King Dragon, the only person I know who lives there. And basically, they were like, this guy's from the gaming world. He's going to be running up TopShot. And we never heard from him again. And then months later, it was like, I think it was Ghost when he worked with us. He like found on LinkedIn that guy didn't even work at Dapper anymore. And we were like, never told that guy even did anything. He was just gone one day. And then I was looking back on old tweets. It was only just this past May, Phil D, like May 2022, that Janie was announced as the new general manager of NBA TopShot. Dapper never acknowledged that Tristan was even gone, never said anything, but they said new GM and it's Janie. And that's literally as recently as May. And we haven't heard from her, at least publicly, since late October, since her mental health leave. Now Dave, who was the GM of All Day, is gone. UFC Strike has gone from Malik being the GM, who is still in the mix, but no longer the GM, to a guy from a gaming company who's now the GM to go and build out a whole like gaming product for UFC Strike. So a total pivot for that product there. Phil D, the GM model, is it dead? Was that ever a good idea? Is that something, is that going to die off now? We're not going to talk about GMs anymore?
Yeah, for sure. After the latest string of GMs either vanishing or not really kind of playing the GM role that I in my head as a GM, like for me, a GM is somebody that, again, if you're not happy with something, whether they like it or not, and whether that's the right move or not, I can tag them on Twitter, and they don't have to answer, but it'll be taken into consideration if the entire community is pissed at the same thing. It's kind of a sense of comfort. GM for athletes is completely different. It's their boss, really. It's who makes the big decisions with their future and anything that to do with the team. But it's a little different in the NFT space. This is someone that the community turns to, which is why for me it's been such a problem since Janie kind of just took her leave that it wasn't even addressed. Like, if that happens, and if the Toronto Raptors GM decides all of a sudden to take a leave, then the franchise will make a statement telling its fans and its people and the people who keep their business running that the GM of the Toronto Raptors is taking a leave of absence for whatever time, and this person will be in charge while they're away. That's
Well, hold on.
standard.
Janie did say she was taking a leave at the start of
She did.
October. She was going on
She
mental health
did.
leave.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. No, Dapper never said anything. She said she was going on mental health leave, which was obviously
Right.
a really strange move because it was a week before the NBA season started on the product that she's working on. And I think general manager in this case, yeah, you're right. Obviously not managing players, but I think it's like basically like a proxy for like being head of growth, basically. But also, like you're saying, like being accountable to the community, which is I think what you were asking about now is like, well, who is that now? Right? Is that just Luke El Dumbo, who's just like the community marauder, wonderful person to be kind of like the community connection, but is he the person making the decisions? Right? Like, I don't think so. He's just the person who's out there to kind of like
the reason that
calm us down.
Someone like Dumbo, and we love Dumbo. The reason Dumbo is not legit for me in terms of being the person to go to is because he's involved in every project. So that's not his role. So you need big projects like All Day or TopShot. You need a single person, a specific person that will take full ownership and full leadership when things go wrong. Like TopShot recently had another problem with a challenge reward. Okay. I think it was like the Donovan Mitchell or something. Like it only
Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. Right. It only minted halfway or something like that. And some people didn't get it. But nothing was said. Like we didn't know where to go. I didn't have a horse in that race, but I would have still loved to see who's in charge. And I want to go to their Twitter and I want to see them say something about it. That's where we turn to. That builds confidence in what you're doing when you know that someone has, someone's in charge. It's just like at work. If my boss is a complete bozo and someone who can't do the basic things correctly, which is, communication and leadership and things like that, then I won't respect that. And the chances are I probably won't, abide by those same standards. And I'll start doing whatever the hell I want. And I feel like that's what's going on here is that, people are being turned off because there is no leadership. Whether, when Jacob was around and he was in charge, he took a beat down most of the time when things went wrong. Okay. Yeah. I even went as far as saying, listen, someone needs to be fired. It's probably Jacob. We love the guy, but things are crazy right now. And these big mistakes keep happening. Somebody needs to take the hit for this. But at least somebody was in charge and we could vent our frustrations towards that person and just have that sense of security that we knew, hey, that person's in charge. They're at fault if something goes wrong. And that just makes you feel good. But right now, we have no idea, man. It's not Dumbo. He's like the community leader everywhere. He's not in charge of TopShot. He's not in charge of All Day. So now what? What's the statement from All Day and TopShot now that Dave Feldman has announced that he's gone? What's the statement? Is there a statement? Are we going to hear something? Probably not. That's my guess.
And I think that's what like bothers most people too, right? It's like, listen, it's normal for things to be bad. We're in tech, we're in crypto. Things will be bad, and it's nobody's fault. And things are bad on TopShot for a long time for other reasons, like oversupply. But people have historically said that the communications are bad, and I think it's just this kind of like strange, like not acknowledging what's going on that I think is what really gives it a bad vibe. Right. And I'm not saying it has to be Roham out there acknowledging everything, but I think it's just basically like nobody ever said officially what happened to Janie. And she clearly doesn't work there anymore. Like that's so obvious to everybody. But the part where they never were able to just come out and say it, I think is a huge problem. And that's like, listen, you want to talk sports, PR, media, that kind of stuff. Like nothing gets you on the road to redemption faster than admitting when you were wrong or when things are bad. You try and hide it, that's when you get in trouble. And I'll take like cheating in baseball it's not apples to apples comparison, obviously, but as an example of like, you can remember the players who took PEDs and tried to deny it for the longest time and then got caught, right? Or whatever, and eventually got approved, but kept denying it. But you probably can't remember the guys who, when they were like, hey, did you take PEDs? They're like, yes, I did. You got me. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like Andy Pettit. I remember, who's the Moose guy on the Yankees? Who's the pitcher on the Yankees? They called Moose. Who's that?
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Mike. Oh my God.
Who was it that took steroids?
No.
Pettit?
No, I don't remember Pettit. Was it Pettit? I don't know, man. There were so many in that era. Oh, what was his name?
Anyways,
Not Musina. Mike Musina. That's the Moose. The Moose is who you're referring to. Mike Musina. No,
but it wasn't. Sorry, I'm just looking it up. It was Andy Pettit who apparently took like PEDs for some elbow problem. And when they named him in the Mitchell report or whatever, they're like, "Hey, you're in the report." He's like, I'm really sorry for what I did." And then nobody ever talked about it again. But everybody only ever talked about the guys who tried to deny it for the longest time. They're like, "No, I was hitting home runs, but it was all me." And it was like so obviously not, right? So it's like I just think that coming out with the admission and really acknowledging when there's problems is incredibly vital to keeping the trust of the community and having people move on to whatever's next. Whereas like now it's like without ever having said, okay, Janie's gone, then we will always talk about Janie. it's going to be a running joke for the longest time because they never ended the story, and they're the only ones who can end the story. So let's hope they can turn that around or something like that. But Phil, we got to move on to the next topic, which is also about Dapper, which is probably even worse problems than having bad communications, which is the lawsuit. So we had the Dapper, the lawsuit against NBA TopShot, Dapper Labs, and Roham. Took another step forward in court last week. Just to recap really quickly, in case you did miss it, basically a little under 2 years ago, a group set a class action lawsuit against Dapper Labs and Roham, saying that NBA TopShot were sold as securities, even though they were not actually registered. And Dapper has since tried to get that dismissed. They asked the judge to throw that lawsuit out. On Wednesday last week, the judge said, no, we're going to proceed with this. I think that there's merit here with this case, that there may be reason to believe that these were sold as securities, unregistered securities. Not that they are. It didn't say that. It's not confirming that they were. So there's no bigger problem yet. But basically, the judge threw out the motion to dismiss. So they're going to go forward with whatever's next. I don't think they go to trial right away. There's probably a million different steps in lawsuits. This probably takes years and years and years. If you're Dapper, you probably want to stretch this out. And you probably don't want to go to trial, because then that would, might result in people, the judge needing to see Roham's emails, and then they'd be public. And that's obviously, a lot of confidential data that nobody wants out there. So they'd probably settle. What I will say, Phil, is that, I did a quick emergency pod with Mike from Team Hold for this. And then I sent out a newsletter, wrote up a quick newsletter kind of explaining it. And this was our most read newsletter ever from the first minute. We've been sending newsletters out for 2 years. This was the one that by far had the biggest open rate, the most clicks ever out of anything. Phil D, first take on the Dapper lawsuit. When you heard the news, when you found out about it, any initial thoughts there?
When I heard, and I kind of briefed through what I heard, and I consider myself a pretty smart guy, I didn't understand any of it. Honestly, I was like, I don't even know what any of this shit means. I don't. Yeah. This whole securities and this and this and that. I think the average person was just like, I don't even know what any of this means. Somebody dumb it down for me and tell me what in the world they are suing Dapper Labs for. And the second thought that came to my mind is this an open lawsuit? When you see those TV commercials, if you lived in Hoover, yes, Alabama, between 1981 and 1989, there was a pig farm that was
class action lawsuit. That's a class action lawsuit. Aaron
call us and you will be able to get something out of it. So first thing that came to mind is, is this one of those where, sure, these three guys started it, but this will be open for anyone to jump on? Because then that becomes a big problem for them, for sure, because you're not going to have one person who doesn't jump on board with this and tries to get something out of it, right? But yeah, no, I still don't really understand it. I did do quite a bit of reading about it, and I read everything that was put out there. And now I do understand it a bit better, but I don't really know what prompted these three to kind of start this. I know a lot of people threatened to sue Dapper Labs for a long time, but what prompted this? When did this start, and when was it actually filed in the court of law?
I think it was in the spring of 2021. So shortly after TopShot boomed and then crashed. And I think the crash left a lot of people really angry, and I think a lot of people invest a lot of money. I think we can all relate to that, having bought things at the top and having it go down. Which again, that's normal in a market. Buying things when things go up and having the market go down happens to a lot of people. Happens to people in the stock market the last year. Has happened many times over years. The problem is that TopShot is not a stock market. Right. And it's not registered as a stock market. And when we first discovered it, many of us said it was a stock market. And even AG, one of the most notorious people in the community, brought up a tweet from Jacob from October 1st, 2020, which is the day that TopShot went into beta and went live public, saying it's the NBA meets the stock market. Right. So there's a lot of reason to believe that this was sold as basically it's some sort of investment platform. But it's not the part where you could trade NBA players like a stock market that is the issue in this lawsuit. It's the part where basically if the company that was selling the NFTs failed, then so would the assets. And that makes you a security when that's registered. So basically, listen, if you're buying shares of Apple, you're investing in Apple. You're not buying an iPhone. Apple goes under, your iPhone's probably still works. And we'll get software updates, but it still works. It's still a product that you're buying. It's not an investment in Apple. You buy Apple shares, and that basically means you're investing in Apple's success. So the problem with the TopShot moments is that basically whenever the marketplace would go down, it would render all the moments completely useless. And what these guys are saying is that the value of you buying the moments was not separated from Dapper as a company, that it was the same
Right.
thing, that basically you're buying these things, and if Dapper fucks up, your investment sucks, that it's dead. And that's basically what they're saying, is that those two things are too closely tied together. And an example that they cite, Phil, in the lawsuit, is that a company like Tops, which is
I heard that today. I was going to bring that up. Yes. I love that.
Like cards being traded is like, listen, if Tops goes under, Tops cards still have value. And it's like you buying
and possibly
the card
increase in value. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Depends on the product, right? But it's like Tops, you buying Tops was never like an investment into Tops. Like you're not getting a share of Tops. The value of Tops is not related to Tops, the company. You are, I mean, obviously it is in some way, but what they're saying is that in this case, it was so directly related that was bad. And that's essentially like what these guys are saying. And they're also saying that and actually a really interesting part in the lawsuit is that the judge points out that it's actually not similar to other NFTs. Because you think like, hey, listen, in 2021, like pretty sure every NFT project said, hey, come buy some NFTs. You're investing in our company and you have a share of the company, whatever. They're actually saying that it's not. They're saying that a lot of other NFT projects were kind of clear about, what it was, whereas it was in the way in which Dapper sold it and told the story and told the narrative that was the issue. And they specifically point out 2 tweets. And this is crazy about it, is if you read the whole document, they have screenshots of 2 tweets from NBA TopShot at the time that are like, hey, this person just bought this. We sold all these packs, like rocket emoji, stock market emoji, fire emoji, and saying that those are bad. And now there's a lot of chatter about how that might, even just this case alone, Phil, might set precedent for emojis being like a signal of financial return. So that like a rocket emoji paired with like, the little red chart emoji, that if you use that in a tweet, you're telling people they can make money. And that's actually like a funny little precedent that might be set with all this. So I take that as you will.
I have to say, I mean, it caused a bit of drama, not too much. I mean, people were kind of riled up. Like I said, the most I really saw there was people asking, how can we join this lawsuit? We actually ended up seeing people we haven't seen in months or even years on the platform coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, I told you, I should be part of this. I want to be part of this. But, a little drama. I love it. It doesn't, impact me whatsoever. I don't know that I'd be joining that anyways, even if I could. And I don't know that it has any legs. I'm not sure. So we'll see where it goes. This could be really interesting to follow though, because this could set the tone for so many different things where people feel the same way, right? Like, I don't know. The judge has to be really careful. Where is this happening? Is this in New York?
It's in New York. Yeah, it was filed in New York. I don't know. I don't know where it goes. And that's where the other part I really pointed out in there was like, listen, this might not mean anything. Like it's not again, I don't mean to keep falling back on this through the whole show, but it's like, this is not abnormal for a tech company. Like tech companies get sued for tons of shit. All the time, like YouTube, Facebook, Google, they get sued to hell for a million different things and come out completely unscathed. Right. Think about 2016 election, where, they all had to go to all these inquiries. Did you let Russians post all these like Hillary Clinton memes, all this kind of shit? And they literally had, the pictures of memes made by Russians of Hillary Clinton as like the devil and shit. And they were like, you let this happen on the platform, and they'd roll out Zuckerberg and all the guys from Google and all that kind of stuff. And those companies are still literally the only companies that are worth $1 trillion ever in the universe. So it's not, this kind of stuff is not too crazy. The problem that it'll be is that it could set the tone. It already has set the tone across the industry. I personally know already of 2 projects that were unannounced, that were big sports IP projects. I obviously can't tell you what, because it was under NDA, that have canceled their plans for release because of this. And it's not because the actual team putting together the project is like, oh, maybe we shouldn't. Their legal teams are like, no fucking way. Like, no way are we launching anything even like you're talking NFTs right now? Absolutely not. Look at what's happening to the biggest company in the space. They're getting their asses sued. And the judge just said that, yes, those might have been securities. Anybody who's planning to sell anything as some kind of collection of anything right now is like, no, we're not doing anything until this settles down or something. Because listen, legal teams control everything here, right? Like, and that's something that's very true. And so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there.
Well,
another go ahead.
I have a question for you. And I don't know if you watch this on Netflix or not, LG, but what is your take? Because this kind of reminds me of this. Should that Pepsi Points kid got his jet? Did you watch that? Where Pepsi, where's my jet?
I haven't watched it yet, but it's
You need
so
to
basically
watch that, man.
what's the summary? Is
This
that like one because it was like collect like 10 million points and you'll get a jet.
So
We'll give
they
you an
ran a
F-18.
commercial. Pepsi ran a
Yeah.
commercial. Because remember, we used to get those booklets in the mail. It ran in Canada as well, but it was a bit different in Canada.
Yeah.
They ran it in Canada. So Pepsi would send out a catalog. If you collected 500 Pepsi points, which you could find under caps of the bottles, you would get a T-shirt. If you collected 10,000, you would get, a
went nuts
jean
for those.
jacket. People went
under
crazy.
The cap. I remember. Oh yeah,
It
I remember
wasn't
like unloading
realistic,
dumpsters
okay?
and shit for bottles. Yeah,
But it just wasn't realistic because if you think about it, like 75 of those little things was like, what, you're gonna buy $75 worth of Pepsi, and then what T-shirt costs $75? That's great.
$5 T-shirt. Yeah,
So
exactly.
they ran a commercial in the US that showed a kid waking up in his room, okay, and he jumps in a fighter jet, an F-16 or whatever it was, not an F-16. They were very specific as to what it was. And he takes it to school. He arrives at school. All the kids run in the window like, oh my God, look at him. And as he gets out of the jet, it says 7 million points at the bottom with no disclaimers, nothing. Okay. So this one wise guy, some young guy in the US who climbs mountains for a living and does crazy stuff like that, decides he's going to collect 7 million points. He found a loophole to collect those 7 million points really, really fast, which included not buying that much product, but he did buy a lot of product.
How did he do it?
And then he went.
How did he do it?
There was some sort of multiplier where you could go online and do some kind of online entries. And if you did it like you
even
could collect points. Yes, you could even just do it online without ever buying the product and come up with tons of points. And he actually did it.
Right.
So he presented the points to Pepsi and they told him to shove it. Okay. Well, he didn't accept that. So he kept coming back, and he met up with a guy who was much older than him, another guy who likes to climb mountains, because he was a tour guide up in the Himalayas or wherever they climb in Mount Everest and all that. So he met up with some huge investor that said, "I'll back you all the way. Take them to court or whatever." Anyways, that years and years and years later, he was offered at one point a settlement of $1 million, but he didn't want that. He wanted the full value of this jet, which was like $40 or $50 million. So he didn't take the settlement. Obscene amount. And you can't even really get these jets. Like the military sells them, or the military buys them in groups of like 7 or 8 jets. And you can't
you sell them to other governments. You sell them to other governments. They're not for civilian purchasing.
But the Pentagon,
retail product.
The Pentagon actually told him, because they inquired with the Pentagon before even going this far, that as long as it doesn't have any weapons on it, like that fire bombs and rockets and stuff, you're actually allowed to own it. Yes. So their goal was to get this fighter jet. They didn't want the money. They wanted the fire jet so that they could rent it out to air shows and make a business out of it. Right. So it went to the furthest extent, and the more it went on, the more kind of Pepsi went after them and made life hell for them. And they ended up getting nothing. They got absolutely nothing. They came out with, the judge ruled against them, and they came out with absolutely nothing. So should have taken the $1 million the first year in. 4 or 5 years later, when they finally ended, they got nothing. And it is what it is. But like the reasoning for the judge was that no one except you, Mr. Whatever, believed that there was really a fighter jet part of this promotion.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. Yeah.
It's not even in the catalog, pal. It's one commercial. And then they even referenced Canada. They said when the commercial ran in Canada after this all started, they had a disclaimer at the bottom this time saying that it's not real. But they started that after the lawsuit or whatever. But they actually sued the guy first before he could even sue them. So they were on top of it. They went to the court in their hometown in New York, where their home base is, and they were all over it. So Pepsi actually got on top of it and came out with nothing. This kid just wouldn't go away, though. He just kept coming back for more, and it's a pretty chaotic story, man. It's fun to watch. He wanted to be annoying and prove a point, right?
Yeah.
But let's be honest, it would have been life-changing money if he ended up winning.
Yeah. Well, honestly, that's probably, what I will say about that is that I don't think that anybody's going to be able to prove that nobody else thought they could make money except for these people, because I think definitely a lot of people thought that they were investing in the success of the product. So I think that part's true. What I will say is that very similar to the case you just described, I don't think anybody's ever doing giveaways, stuff like that, of go collect all these points to win a jet, because everybody stopped doing that. So make sure the prizes are real is probably something, but I'm serious. That's probably something that came out of that, because Pepsi probably spent millions and millions and millions defending that case. Right. So I think that even though it's ridiculous, definitely set a precedent of like, hey, you can't market contests by telling people they're going to win something that doesn't exist. right? So I think that if anything, that
That's
probably
exactly
changed like the contest. That probably significantly changed like McDonald's monopoly, which has its own insane story
Oh
about
yeah,
like
no,
the
we're not
mafia
going
and all
there.
that kind of
That
shit.
one pisses me off big time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
But
was like a
anyways,
super
so
fan of that game. Man.
last thing I'll say for this story. Thanks, Phil, for the 5-minute anecdote about Pepsi. Where's my jet? I didn't know that was a story. So this is actually really helpful for me because now I don't have to watch the documentary now.
No, you do.
Because
You actually still have to watch it.
The last part I wanted to point out, we put this in the newsletter last week too, was that on the same day, Wednesday, which was the day the lawsuit moved forward, and then also that the layoffs were announced at Dapper Labs, Roham did send out an email that was leaked to Dapper Labs investors, to their group of investors, basically describing like, okay, here's what happened, here's our positioning on it. And then he talked about the executive team that had recently been promoted to kind of be like, be charting the course of the future of Dapper Labs. So his, obviously a really optimistic tone. What I found was most interesting is that he actually outlined their top line sales for each year to pretty much show that 2022 was still a pretty healthy year. I don't know what 2023 is going to look like, but he said for transparency, our top line sales, which comes from packs and 5% of marketplace and wallet fees over the past 3 years, is 2020, $5 million, 2021, $167 million, and 2022, $135 million. So really trying to show off to investors that in the long run, like, listen, they've made buckets of money in 2 out of the 3 years since people started heavily investing. I don't know if he's going to be able to report the same thing for 2023 because some packs are struggling to sell, but we're still early in the year, only the end of February so far. But yeah, I thought that was interesting to get a look at how they kind of like relay their finances back to investors there from Roham. So anyways, last thing I'll say, actually one more thing I want to say, Phil, is with those tweets, with that precedent being set on the tweets, I do feel partially responsible for that, mainly because if you remember some of the very early first mint tweets, which you helped write a lot of them as well, was that we became like emoji masters of basically like how to lay out emojis, how to use the rocket, and how to use the chart. And I don't know, maybe that's something that influenced TopShot, whoever was running the TopShot account, to start using emojis the same way we were. I don't know if they were using them that way at the time, but I feel like First Mint was one of the first ones to use emojis in that way. And who knows, Phil, maybe we had part of that. Maybe you and I are a small reason to blame for potential emoji financial regulation
do
coming.
Not include our names. Don't even give that idea, because I saw Drake recently being part of a lawsuit in the death of another rapper who said, if ever I die, it was Drake. Okay. And then the guy got shot like a few days later, and now Drake actually has to go to court for this when he had absolutely nothing to do with it. The guy was just saying stupid stuff. So don't drag our name. But I will say this: when I was taking care of some of the early tweets, because I was just like, you can help out with the tweets and stuff like that. I would write, I would use the entire character limit, which was all words and letters, and I would use maybe 5 emojis, and I would always send it to LG right before tweeting it. And I think we spent over an hour trying to fix the emojis that we were using to be the proper ones, not the words. Nothing in there was wrong, but hey, you wrote 6 p.m. Why is there not a clock in front of it? There needs to be a clock in front of it. You wrote $25 with the dollar sign. There needs to be the emoji of the dollar
or the money bag.
Ever since then, if you look at all my tweets, they all have emojis. Ever since that, I've been using emojis. Ever since that, it's like a trend.
Firm believer in emojis and emoji science. I'm a firm believer, and I don't think anybody else is like this, of consistent emoji use. So whenever you talk about the same stuff, you should remember at the time I came up with emojis for each set on TopShot. I was like, okay, if it's throw down, it's like the explosion one. If it's cool cats, it's this cat, not another cat, this cat, So I had a very specific mandate back then, and still kind of do now, a little bit more relaxed. But hey, listen, emoji science definitely helps, tweets succeed and social media content succeed. And in this case, we might see first of its kind regulation for financially suggestive emojis. Phil, let's move on to the third topic of the day. We've had a lot. This has all been kind of downer stuff to talk about lawsuits and people leaving Dapper. So it's there's only so many positive things to say there. Let's look at the sports schedule, because this week a brand new product, well, not brand new product, but a new intellectual property that is pretty big in the sports world launches for the first time in NFTs. The PGA is coming to DraftKings Reignmakers. I have never really touched DraftKings Reignmakers. I can't stand the look and vibe of the marketplace, to be totally honest with you. It's just kind of like ugly. But I do know that Reignmakers was very, very popular for this past NFL season. I think it's mildly popular for UFC Strike. We don't have any data on it at the first one. It's really, really hard to pull data, so I can't tell you what their sales look like. But from what I understand, they are pretty big. And information just came out last Friday for PGA Reignmakers. So, Phil, how about this? I'm going to read to you what the details are for the pack drops and stuff like that. And you tell me if it's something you're actually interested in, because I know, Phil, that you are a huge, obviously a huge golf fan. It's something I'm open to being. I love playing sports like through NFTs. So it's something I might be into, but maybe we can go through the pack details first before we make any major decisions.
Let's hear it. I love it.
Okay.
We're approaching a really big time in golf right now with the Masters coming up. So they're actually picked the right time to do it. There's been a few big tournaments already this year, but nothing as big as what the Masters is going to be. And we're already seeing commercials, right? That song Georgia comes on and people get excited. It's springtime. And I'm excited. I know nothing about this drop. So I'm excited to hear.
Okay. So this is all on Reignmakers, which is built on Polygon. And you can only really use these in the Reignmakers marketplace, which is all in USD. So just have that as a caveat in advance. What I will say positive about Reignmakers is that they do have cash prizes, right? This is DraftKings. So these are set up exactly like fantasy sport, like their DFS competition. So it's very standard. So it should be, I think that's another reason driving a lot of the adoption is it's really easy for people to play. It mirrors what they currently do. So they are selling quite a few different things. The first thing they're going to do is on March 6th, which will be, I think, Monday next week. When's the players start? When's the players tournament? The following weekend, 2 weekends from now, I think. Right? When is that?
What's that? Which one? The
players tournament. Like that's the first one, right? The players championship. Sorry. Yeah, Players Championship starts March 9th, right? It's March 9th to 12th.
Right.
So
it's not a major, but it's a big tournament.
Yeah, sorry. It's like the first big tournament of the year.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Yeah. So next Monday, March 6th, Reignmakers is going to be dropping a free pack. Okay, it's a free pack. You get 8 core cards, which is, I think, the very, very, very basic tier of them. Every pack you get one free pack as like a person. And in there, you get one champion golfer. Okay, so one, I guess, good golfer, or past champions. So Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, John Ram, like a few other guys like that. Okay, so you get one of those guys. And for that, you basically participate in like the starter competitions, and there's $10,000 per week of prizes that you can win from that. And you can set 3 guys per lineup. And also they've hinted that those cards, you'll be able to craft and burn them and do all this other kind of fun shit. But that's like the very base. I think you can also buy core cards in some way, but that is the base layer. And Phil, I'm telling you that because I know you're the cheapie at these ones. So I think that's where Phil's going to play. On top of that, they are also selling on March 6th, Genesis packs, which I believe are packs where you can buy, which come with rarer cards. Okay, so they have, like everything else, they have different tiers of cards. They have core, which is the basic ones we just talked about, and then they have like elite, rare, legendary, and Rainmaker, which are like super, super rare. So a lot of different tiers. But basically, on March 6th, they sell these cards. You can play them this entire year, so they're only good for 2023. There's 209 golfers in there. And then you can enter those into different contests every week. Basically, literally every week of the season, because there's golf every week of this every weekend. Basically, there's somewhere between like 150 to 250 grand of prizes for both like the core, which is the stuff you play with the free stuff, and the other and all the other tiers. So there's a lot where you can win, and those prizes go up at the major championships, like Wells Fargo, PGA, Memorial, Travelers, US Open. Like there's quite a lot of them where it's like it's a much bigger pool of prizing. What else am I going to say? There's also those Genesis packs. This is the part that's really interesting, Phil. How much do you think those packs cost?
How
for like the
how
Genesis,
how many golfers do you get in the Genesis?
You get 5 cards. So there's 2 tiers of pack, and I'll let you guess what the prices are. So there's 5 cards in one of them, which is the Genesis Birdie, and you get guaranteed 1 rare. And then the next one is the Genesis Eagle pack, where you get 5 cards and you're including 1 legendary. How much do you think either one is priced at?
I'll go with $99. Or am I
And then
way
what about the
off?
Genesis one, the one that's guaranteed legendary? How much do you think that's
Oh,
priced at?
okay. Sorry, I didn't hear that guaranteed legendary. I was
Yeah,
actually
yeah. So,
referring to that one. So I'll go with
okay, no, no, no.
299. 299.
Okay.
Oh,
So the
I
Genesis
know it's
Birdie,
coming here.
which is guaranteed one rare, is 199.99.
Okay. All right.
So 5 cards, including one rare. And the Genesis Eagle, which is 5 cards, including guaranteed a legendary, is $1999.99. $2,000. $2,000 packs.
All right. Well, I mean,
Which again, there's utility all year for sure. But
right.
if you land a legendary of, I don't even know what the most obscure shitty golfer is, but that's very possible if you pay $2,000 for that, that you're going to get that. Not the greatest thing. They're also selling. I'm not done telling you the stuff that they're selling. They're selling something called a Green Pass, which starts this Wednesday, March 1st to 5th. They're $150 each. There's 3,000 of them total, so I guess kind of limited supply, where it gives you a boost for a lot of your cards through the season, and then a bunch of other utility that I read through the list. The utility like doesn't really make sense. Like it's stuff we don't know about yet. It's like access to other drops, qualifying for special tournaments, like that kind of stuff. So I guess the conclusion here, Phil, is that participating in PGA Reignmakers, there is a low tier option for the newbies, but maybe not something, maybe not something for the people in the $100 range, maybe something a little bit more expensive.
So it's kind of aimed to the DFS crowd to kind of jump into that as well. The ones who have a ton of balance in DraftKings. And, for me, it's become a moot point, LG, because DFS is now banned in Ontario.
Yeah.
So, and you know what the worst part is most of the sites where things like that are banned, you can use a VPN and still use them. DraftKings has blocked every single possible IP on the VPNs, that no matter, I've picked the most obscure places, still trying to play my $5 weekly lineups in NFL and stuff. And even the most obscure places in the world, they block you and say, we know you're in Ontario. Don't lie. So I'm like, okay, man, why? Nobody else goes to that extent to block us out. Like, it's pretty easy to do, to be honest, with so many sites. But DraftKings goes to this some other extent to really, really crack down on that stuff. And it's kind of taking the fun of it. I'm not driving to Quebec every week or to Michigan or any of those places just to put in my lineups. I know some people do.
So does that include Reignmakers then for you?
It does. We're not allowed to play Reignmakers. Yes, correct.
But you can play Sorare.
I can play Sorare. I know. And I didn't want to say anything because I'm like, that's another form of DFS. But no one's caught on to that and said, my very first question, and I never brought it up again when we did that show on Sorare, is, are we allowed to play in Ontario? And then I realized, wait a sec. I better not even open that can of worms, because what if their legal team kind of looks into that and is like, oh yeah, we can't do that, right? It's weird. I don't know how they're allowed to do it, but I'm not going to keep asking that question. Maybe I just screwed myself over right now. But it's really annoying. It really is. It's just greed all around from like governments and stuff trying to get you to play their games and limit what you're allowed to do. It's complete BS, and it's just, I don't want to have to go through all of that to actually make it happen. Like, what am I going to say? Hey, LG, let me call LG up for a second here. Actually, funny stories is I was in the States and I couldn't get onto whatever website it was. And I asked my daughter, I said, hey, you're still in Canada. Can you just go on there and do whatever? And then the account got blocked. They're like, we see you in 2 different places in the span of like 5 minutes. No. I'm like, well, since you guys don't let me from here, I got my daughter to log in, and they're like, you can't do that. That's multi-account use or something like that. So,
oh my God,
it's very annoying. I'm not gonna lie, right? I don't like restrictions, and it kind of ruins it for me. Like, what am I gonna do with Reignmaker? I can't do anything.
So you can't play Reignmakers then? You can't play Reignmakers?
No, I can't. Unfortunately, I can't. We had DFS for 10 years here or more, and then all
what
of a sudden
happened? Why is it? Why?
So the rule was with the Canadian government, or sorry, the Ontario government, was that when these websites like DraftKings and FanDuel opened their sports betting casinos, okay, that they were not allowed to offer DFS anymore. It had to just be the casinos, and then we would figure out the DFS later, because it had been DFS only. There was no casinos here before for anything like, no DraftKings, no MGM, no FanDuel. Right. That didn't exist here. It was all Canadian, Ontario government, whatever. But now that they brought their casinos here, the part of the agreement was, and I still don't really understand why, I'm sure some expert could kind of touch on this, was that if we were bringing sports gambling to Ontario legally through all these casinos, they were not allowed to offer DFS anymore. That was out the window. And they screwed everybody over, because that's what most people enjoy, right? It's a simple, it's not the same. People say it's the same, but it's not, For me, there's a huge difference between sports gambling and playing DFS, which is fantasy football, which is kind of what you play all year round with your friends anyways.
Yeah.
And I think it has much less of an impact on people than gambling can have. So a little bit of a shocking move when they did that kind of stuff, and disappointing. Not going to lie, but hey, I'm still intrigued. Right. Maybe I can call you and be like, "Hey, set my lineups."
Yeah. Man, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I don't even know if is it legal in BC. Can we do it out here out west?
I'm assuming
so.
I thought only Ontario. I think only Ontario.
I hope so. Otherwise, I don't even know why we talked about it on the show. Anyways, you know what? How about this? Let's move on to the next thing. But for anybody out there who's listening, if you what I want to know actually is if you played Reignmakers at any point in the past, like through the first NFL season or through UFC stuff, please let us know. Please write in because I want to know what your experience was like. So if you have played it, please let us know if it's something you've enjoyed, because something we haven't really done too much of. I just found out that Phil's not even allowed from doing it. So Phil's been totally banned from playing DFS on Reignmakers. So that's a bit of a downer. So probably get a little less coverage on our show, but I want to hear from you guys. Let us know if it's something that you have played a lot of. And with that, Phil D, something I forgot to do early in the show. Let's take a pause for a word from our sponsor. Watch, play, earn, redeem. It's that simple in the newest game from Bleacher Report. During NBA on TNT, test your trivia knowledge, and for every correct answer, you can earn BR tokens. BR tokens may unlock future access to limited quantities of real-world and digital assets, which are planned to be made available via an online marketplace. Terms apply. See brw2e.com. Wow.
What a voice.
Ad right in the podcast. All right, Phil, 30 days away, MLB opening day. How big, where is baseball in your pantheon of sports? Like where like if you're ranking sports in terms of stuff that you're interested in, where's baseball in there?
It's pretty high up there. I think it's also because my daughter's so into baseball now in terms of like Jays and all sports like that we go to so many games together that, I don't really usually go to sporting events. I don't mind watching on TV. I like to go when it's chaotic. But she loves going to games. So I take her all the time to all sorts of, junior hockey games and Leafs games and anything we can really. But baseball, for some reason, has really caught her attention and she's interested. So, baseball is such a long season that I think the peak of the excitement is usually at this time of the year, right? Yes. Spring training has started. The World Baseball Classic is coming up, which I actually am very interested in. I saw Canada's roster and it was better than I thought it would be. A lot more players on there. That play at a high level than I even knew about, which is kind of crazy because that's what I collect. Like Freddie Freeman is actually playing for Canada at the World Baseball Classic, right? Which I knew he was part of the Canadian national team, but I'm just like, man, he's got dual citizenship. So how could a guy like that not want to play for the U.S.? He'd easily be on the American team and be a pretty big member of it, right? Like, so I'm pretty excited about that. And you know how it is, LG. You've been in enough Toronto Blue Jays home openers where it's a complete shit show.
It's a shit show.
Where it's an
absolute disaster.
Because those who don't know, they sell out the very first game, the home opener, to 50,000 seats, and then the next night is 19,000.
Half as many. Yeah,
the seats are empty. So
I'm sure I'm sure a lot of cities are like that too.
So everywhere, it's like that everywhere. 100%.
Yeah, like every sports league is like that, right? Where it's like you max, you have peak interest at the very start. That then tapers off unless your team is one of the best, contender. So I think that's kind of normal.
Yeah. We've actually discussed something we'd like to do, something in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years together, is we would love to kind of maybe try and see every Major League Baseball ballpark. I know a lot of people do it.
Not you and me. You're talking about you and your daughter.
Yes, correct. And going to, every you've been to way more ballparks than I've been to. That was a thing for a long time. And you've got some pretty wild pictures and videos of you in ballparks. But it's weird. It's weird how baseball kind of, captures that interest in you more than other sports. Like I love the NFL a lot more than I love baseball. And I love the NHL more than I love baseball. But I don't have any interest in going to every single arena or stadium in the NFL. I don't really care. There's actually something really special about baseball stadiums, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fact that you're not paying attention to the game, the entire game, and you can kind of enjoy where you are, right? As opposed to when you're going to a hockey game, you're dialed in the whole time. Football, you're definitely dialed in. You're never just sitting there bored looking around saying, hey, look how cool this city is, right? A good example is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You know what people say about Pittsburgh? Nobody wants to go to Pittsburgh. But if you've been to Pittsburgh and you've been to their ballpark, you're just like, wow, What a
PNC
setting,
Park
man.
is one of the nicest
This is
parks I've ever been
beautiful,
to, if not the best one. It's
right?
amazing there. It's
I
so
love
nice.
that
Like
city, man. I love it.
right field has like five rows in it, and then it drops off onto like you see like the water in the skyline. Like it's such a
Oh, it's
beautiful.
beautiful.
I was really impressed when I went to Pittsburgh, and this is a long time ago. It was like 15 or 16 years ago. I road trip down to Pittsburgh, but I was really impressed because I always heard it was a freaking dump, and it was not at all. It was a beautiful little city like in the hills there. Had a great time staying at the Motel 6. And ordering some Domino's with my buddies. We went to, actually, here's a funny story for you about when I went to Pittsburgh, to completely detract from talking about candy or Sorare before I get to my story about getting timed out in the Discord. When I went to Pittsburgh, we were there and I was there with a bunch of buddies, and we're pretty young at the time, and I had a buddy then who worked at Urban Outfitters. Is that no, not Urban Outfitters. Is that a store? Anyways, some freaking clothing store.
Stitches.
No, not Stitches. No, some fucking clothing store. It was like the hot clothing store back in like 2007. They had in every city, and he was like a manager there. And he's like, "Yo, you know what we're gonna do to figure out where to go party in Pittsburgh? Is we are gonna go to the Urban Outfitters in Pittsburgh and go ask the people there where's a good bar to go out to." And we're like, "Dude, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard." We get to Pittsburgh, and he's like, "All right, let's go to it." We go to the Urban Outfitters, and like literally he walks right up to the counter to this like surfer looking dude. And he's like, "Hey man, I manage a store back in Toronto. We're just visiting here. Where's a cool place to go out?" And the bartender, or not bartender, the cashier, he's like, "Oh, you know what? I'm actually a bartender at a bar on Saturday nights." And it was a Saturday night. And he's like, "You should come I'll put you on the list. You should come to my bar." We're like, "Oh wow, that actually worked." And we go to this bar, and we walk in, and it's kind of normal, like kind of country bar. And there's a huge ass timer on the wall that is like, it's like 8 o'clock or something like that. Or no, it's not, it's like 10. And the timer is like counting down from 2 hours. And we see our guy, like the hookup from the freaking store. And he's like, and we ask him, we go, "Hey, what is the timer for?" And he goes, "When that gets to 0, it rains in here." And then he gives a bunch of plastic bags. And he wasn't kidding. Literally at midnight, they turn on the fucking sprinklers in the bar, and you just get drenched. Like, I was like, "What the fuck, man?" And the worst part is my passport got wet. And my passport is all like, you're traveling, you have your passport on you, right? You're traveling across the border. So it's like, I had my passport was soaked after it. I was like, shit, I hope I can get back into the freaking country. My shoes were wet. We went to the game the next day, like still like wet. Like it was messed up, man. But hey, that was my experience in Pittsburgh. So a hell of a place to party. I had a great time.
That's what I'm saying. People just don't know this. And there's something about baseball and attending baseball stadiums that just brings out the best in cities. I mean, you can't say that about every city, but they're just different. And I really do believe it's because you don't pay attention to the whole game. You kind of appreciate the scenery more, right? But yeah, I'd love to do that. And it's the time of the year, and it's the summertime, right? So you can travel a lot easier. You can drive a lot of places, and you can kind of just enjoy what you're doing while doing it. So maybe we'll see what happens with that. I mean, it's not really, a realistic goal, but yeah, we'll see.
What are your current thoughts on Candy Digital?
I mean, like, okay, so Candy is one of those where, I mean, it's no secret that I am not a Gary V fan. Okay, I've been pretty vocal about that. I don't really go on Twitter and say that or anything because I don't care. But if people ask, I'll say it. So anything he backs, I usually stay away from. There's something about it. I don't like this guy. And to me, I have a pretty good radar when something's off with people and something's off with him. But I'll leave it at that. That's a whole other story. I know a lot of people support him, so I don't want to step on people's toes with that kind of stuff. But I'm not a fan of his. I think extremely creepy behavior and a lot of things like that. But anyways, that's not my point here. But with Candy, it's like, where are we going with this? I am enjoying the platform because I'm collecting what I like. I feel like a kid again collecting these weird baseball cards and keeping them. I collect all the J stuff. I love the play of the day. I love that there's video highlights. But they haven't upgraded their marketplace. Like, as much as we talk about TopShot, the platform itself on TopShot is still the best. It is in terms of the marketplace and everything you can do on there. It's fantastic, and it actually enhances.
The product is amazing. Absolutely,
the product's amazing, right? And it kind of makes up for some of the other stuff, and that's why we still love it for the most part. But Candy, I still feel like, man, Like I can't even look at my collection and feel proud of my collection because I don't even know what's going on here. It doesn't show me my sets. It doesn't show me what I'm missing. It's just, for me, there hasn't been enough, building. Like I keep seeing NASCAR stuff and Netflix stuff, and I'm just like, where are we going with this? So I don't know. For me, it's, for me, and this, I give up on things pretty easily. I don't have a lot of patience, and I'm not going to lie. Lately, for me, Sorare has just not hit the spot. I've kind of not given up on it. For basketball, I mean, I've kind of
you're for Sorare. You're talking
for Sorare. I'm kind of just like, man, you know what? I'm a little bored now. You know me. When I get bored, I don't do a full bailout, but I'm just like, all right, well, whatever. I'm on pause now. I'm not. Really
That's normal though. I think that's normal. So, I think in this current like NFT market, it's like, listen, things aren't going to moon. Things aren't going to pop off. At least in the sports world, like that's not realistic anymore. So it's like it's up to these products to keep something like really attractive and fun, right? And it's like they can be a collectibles platform, but it's like I don't know if there's like a proven market for that, right? Like something like Candy is basically just a carbon copy of TopShot, right? It's on a chain that's called Palm. There's kind of the shitty side chain from Ethereum that does not work very well. You can't do anything with the assets. It's not being like developed the same way that TopShot is being integrated into Flow, which for all the misgivings there, it's like, well, it's still being like people built all these tools around TopShot and around Flow. Like there's evaluates, there's floaties, OTM, like there's a lot of other stuff out there that's built in the ecosystem. Candy is like literally here's digital baseball cards like the other stuff you like. And it's on a platform that doesn't like work as well. And like you're saying, it's kind of confusing where it's like the same platform has like Netflix and NASCAR and stuff. So it's a bit strange. So I don't know. And baseball also as a whole, baseball's on the decline, right? Like baseball already has a problem trying to get viewers. We saw this past weekend, we saw some of those new rule changes come into effect where you had like they're trying to speed up the pitchers and the batters, which is insane. You saw that, right? Obviously who was it that got called the strike, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs,
bases loaded,
bases loaded, tie game. And I don't know who the batter was, but they haven't basically for people who don't know, the new rules in baseball this year are that they have an actual counter for the pitcher, right? So there's a huge counter behind home plate that starts at 15 seconds as soon as the pitcher basically gets the ball back, and it's to speed them up. So every baseball broadcast you're going to watch this year is going to have a giant ass clock. Every Candy thing that they release this year is going to have a giant ass clock in the highlight, and it's basically they have 15 seconds to throw the ball to try and speed up the game, trying to get broadcasts from being 3.5 hours to like 2.5 hours. What they've also done though is they have added a batter count where the batter has 8 seconds to be in the box ready and looking at the pitcher. Like the batter's head has to be like turned and looking at the pitcher. The other day, I forget which game it was, but like bases loaded, full count, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, the guy's up, and he did not turn his head quickly enough to look at the pitcher, ridiculous. And he got Absolutely called ridiculous. Out on a strike. He was given a strike as a penalty. And even the catcher, Phil, for the defending team, wasn't ready. He was still standing there. Like neither guy was ready. Yeah. And already. So anyways, you're shaking your head. What I'm saying, I don't want to go into that, but what I'm saying is that MLB is clearly trying to spice up the game, make it more interesting, make it faster. So I think traditional baseball products are going to struggle a little bit because naturally interest is declining, right? So I don't know. Candy, I know there's a lot of hardcore Candy people out there, but their weekly average buyers right now is like 230. You'd hope that a week before the season starts, that it would start to tick up. And it's the same number on Sorare, MLB, like under 300 weekly buyers right now. They have not yet announced their plans for the season. Although they did make a pretty big change last week, which is where my
tell us about the
Discord story comes into it. So, okay.
Here we go.
Okay, more storytelling. So now it's time to hear about it. So basically, how Sorare works for people who haven't played it is that every current season's cards, because you buy cards, you play them in fantasy, every current season's cards get a boost for that season. And it's to basically like make them attractive to buy. That's how they keep people buying every year. So it's, for this current season, if you're playing NBA Sorare and you get a basic card, you get a 5% boost on it. If you get a rare card, you get a 15% boost. At the end of the season, that boost goes away. Right. But then you can also, those cards also collect experience points, XP, which then gives you a boost over time. So there's a good reason to buy early cards from the start and to hold them for a long time, because over time you'll have the most experience points from playing them. Last year, I've been studying MLB Sorare for a while now, for a couple months, and I've been buying a lot in anticipation of what I'm hoping is going to be a really big rollout and a really big marketing push. Basically, last season, they didn't start until the end of July. and so they only had like 1/3 of a season. They gave all those cards the appropriate boosts, right? 5 and 15% and whatever for each level. And they had not said yet what would happen to the boost. Everybody assumed that it would go away, which is normal for the start of the season. But some people argued like, listen, hey, we only had this for 2 months. It's kind of silly to lose that boost because then there'll be no reason to hold the Series 1 cards. And last week, out of nowhere, with no announcement, no blog, not even anything from the Twitter or Discord account, that bonus was removed. And me and other people took issue to it in Discord. We talked about it. I think this was on Thursday. We're like, hey, what's going on with that? And we're pretty much told, like, who cares? You'll find out more soon, but we don't have anything to say from the community leads. The next morning on the Friday, I came back in there again being like, hey, what's going on? And one of the community leads basically said something like, wow, like this is so yesterday to talk about this. Like, can we just move on and look forward to a baseball season, please? And I kind of took issue with that, where I was like, hey, listen, like you can't really say Seriously. That. I forgot what exactly I said. It was way more aggressive than that, but it was basically like I pretty much like made fun of him by saying like, how dare our community hold us accountable? And that kind of started this back and forth between me and him and like a few other community members on both sides, where he was like, man, he's just same message where he's like, I'm tired of people bringing this up. Like, let's just talk about something else. And I was like, no, like, then I started saying that, he had a bad attitude. I was like, listen, you have a bad attitude. Like, you can't just, I called him dismissive. I was like, you're being really dismissive of my concerns and other people's concerns. Like, yeah, it's yesterday's news, but there's no news. You haven't said anything else. And then more messages were exchanged. And then the new community manager, who's another person that no one's ever heard from, came in there, John, and timed me out. Was like, I'm going to come here and calm things down, and timed me out for 24 hours. I wasn't allowed to post anything in there, which I'm pretty sure I was the only person who was timed out. So I wasn't very happy about that. I was like, maybe I do need to cool off. But at the same time, I think that's like just a terrible, terrible look. I was like, I didn't say anything aggressive. Like I didn't start swearing or anything. Like, obviously we're having some fun in the Discord and everybody, me and the other community members.
Like we do in every single Discord. Yes.
Like every Discord where it's just like, well, if there's nothing else to talk about, like, let us talk about this. But I think it's like a bit of a strange look to start muting people for saying, hey, your community rep is being dismissive towards me. So anyways, I'm not happy about that. And I don't know. I was planning to write a lot of content about MLB Sorare once they had their stuff out. And now I'm not, I don't know. It's not that I don't want to cover it, but it has significantly changed my opinion of like how they're doing things there. I know that Sorare historically has struggled with community. So I don't know, I don't know if they're going to be able to kind of like turn that into something positive. I just can't stand when a community is like, hey, your concerns don't matter anymore. I think that's just a terrible look. So that's my Discord MLB story.
I agree. Like, honestly, it's just not the way to approach things. But I think at the same time, I think we're at a stage right now where there's so much of a lack of interest for people to run Discords and finding even people willing to do that kind of stuff. Or because I'm sure a lot of these projects, it's hard to pay people these days, big money. Or like the money's not flowing the way it used to be. Sorare, I'm not saying that it's not, but and I also don't think the MLB is a priority for them. I think they just kind of ruled it out because they could. And I don't think that the big wigs over there have kind of turned their focus to it just yet. We're in the prime time soccer season right now. Soccer is their big money maker. It is the big money maker of sports NFTs right now. If you look at the numbers, LG, and you post them almost on the First Minute account every week, soccer rules right now, big time in this market. So their focus is there. And we're in prime soccer season right now, to the point where I even have a feeling that MLB is just going to be kind of on the side for now for Sorare. Whether you like it or not, I think that's where we're heading with this, right? And then once soccer's kind of done, which is not till June or July, then maybe there'll be more focus put on MLB. But that doesn't excuse. I mean, if you've got a product out there, you have to be on top of things. And I know it shouldn't be too much to ask for to get some more information in this case, because we've been discussing this for a long time, right? Like we've been on this for a while now. Now it's really approaching, and then there's just nothing out there, right?
But listen, there's so much
potential. The posts are moving, right? That's the problem too.
But Phil, there's so much potential, right? Whereas like collectibles, I don't know. Like, yeah, of course, there's baseball cards in the past, so I don't know about the viability of something like candy. Fantasy baseball is the second most played type of fantasy. Like it's behind NFL. Like it's way ahead of like NBA or any of the other sports. Like fantasy baseball is fucking huge. And you're talking about like literally the only thing, like there's no Reignmakers MLB. Like there's nothing else like that. There's only Sorare. So it's like there is a huge market share here that they could go out and capture. And I'm not saying they're not going to be able to because they were mean to me in the community. I mean, it's like you got 30 days until opening day. Like you got to go big here. And I know a month ago, some of their engineers and stuff were asking on Twitter. They were like, what changes do you want to see to MLB Sorare this year? So maybe they don't have a plan. The only other thing I'll say, and I don't mean this to sound ignorant or racist in any way, is that Sorare is a French company, right? We've had Nicholas on the podcast very recently, really lovely guy. Soccer, obviously a massive international sport, huge in France, obviously. Basketball, also a huge international sport. The highest rated prospect right now is from France, and they've had a lot of fantastic players. France is really good internationally at basketball, so it's very cultural there. Baseball, how many people in France play fucking baseball? Zero. Maybe a few, but like true. There's not. Are there any major leaguers that are born in France? Like probably not. Not if they grew up there, right? So obviously baseball is an international sport, especially in Asia, like huge, right? In the Japanese, Korean leagues and stuff, but a little bit different, I think, maybe culturally for a company that I don't know. I think it's as hard as if leadership doesn't have like a deep rooted cultural knowledge of a sport, it might be a little harder to understand its cultural significance. I'm not saying that can't be learned, and again, I don't mean that in a bigoted way or anything like that. I'm just saying that soccer and basketball, massive international markets, especially in France. But baseball, something that might be a little less native to the leadership team there. So I don't know. We'll wait and see what that looks like. They've also got a massive American team at Sorare. They have a massive American team. So it's not that it's impossible. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, if it's not something you grew up with or that's cultural where you are, it might be a little harder to relate to the average fan. If you haven't been part of that culture, it's not.
It's just not an international sport. And if we're being honest, It's actually one of the sports where a lot of the countries that are very good at baseball are not developed the way some of the big, soccer countries are. Right? Soccer has its share of countries that are not, the richest countries in the world, but they also have tons of countries in Europe and all over the world where people are into this kind of stuff. But I'm telling you right now, in the Dominican Republic, and we actually had some guests on from the Dominican, those two kids at one time that were like, yeah, we're trying to build NFTs in this place. Or maybe it was me with something else. But they said nobody cares here. Nobody really has the money to do any of that kind of stuff. And baseball, whether we like it or not, is not an international sport at this point. There are players around the world that are good. There are other leagues that are popular, like in Japan and Korea, and they do provide Major League Baseball players, but not on the same scale as the NBA and soccer. That's just the reality of things. So I think they're gonna have a bit more trouble with that. But at the same time, I mean, there is a market out there, and like you said, there's a lot of Americans on that team, and we'll see what they do. I think we give them a shot here. Not ideal what happened to you in the Discord, but I think I kind of fault. I
deserved part of it.
Lack of experience. Yeah, no. Well, listen, I've been in Discords, LG, where you come in and you right away say, "What the f is going on? What is this crap?" But if someone like me knows you, we know your tone, and we know it's just in a funny tone. It's the same as posting that big bird kicking the door open. It's not meant to say like, "Hey, screw everyone in here." It's kind of just like, "Hey, what the hell?" And you've done it in every single Discord, whether we know the people running the Discord or not. You go in there guns blazing every time and tell me immediately what is happening with this. What the hell is happening with this? Tell me right now. What do you mean? Disgrace, bad. I've seen it. I've seen it all. So
I thought it was kind of normal Discord banter, and then I think it's okay to call out community leads of being like, hey, like you can't like this is what do you think Discord is for? Only positive conversation, and he was like, people complain too much. It's like, bro, it's NFTs, man. That's what this is. Like, sorry to tell you, but it's like people. This is an open forum for people voicing their displeasure. Exactly. So I was pretty unhappy about that, and still am, but. I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about it next week. We'll see if they roll out anything this week. They had promised by the end of February that they would have their season 2 plan. So they've got another 24 hours to do that, and we'll see what comes. Well, I think on that note we can end it. Phil D, been an hour and a half. This has been a pretty good return of the show, I would say. Is there anything else you want to say? Do you have anything to say before we wrap out?
There is not. Listen, we didn't have time to get to these projects that I was being tagged in all week, but I will have something to say for these things. We'll keep that segment for next time, okay? Because it's not something I want to rush through, okay? I want to address some of these projects I was tagged in, and I want to give my thoughts on them. I do want to put a bit of effort into that instead of just, saying, hey, I don't really know what that's all about, so we'll touch on that next week. Other than that, LG, just want to say a massive congratulations on the big 200. I think it's pretty monumental, man. It really is. I already used that word on this episode, but it's not easy to keep going. You could have easily given up halfway through when things weren't going too well. And when you realize that you're either, losing all these bots that have been following, the first minute account. Like for me, I was like, what the hell's going on here, man? Like, do I need to do something different? But it would have been easy to just pack it up and quit. And and I think a lot of people respect the fact that you've taken it this far and that we're still going, still creating content, still keeping people updated. Maybe the interest is not there anymore, but somebody has to do it. And I know you enjoy doing it. So big kudos to you on that. Hopefully we live to 200 years old, man. Ever since I've been young, I would hope they like create, and I think it's because of the Austin Powers movie, where you can freeze somebody for like 50 years. I've always been like, I can't wait till the day where they call me up and be like, if you take this shot, you will live an extra 50 years. It'll freeze you, as you are for like 20 years, and you keep taking it every 20 years. I'll do it, man.
So
I'll be.
So you want to do this podcast for 200 years? Why stop at 200 episodes when we could do 200 years? Is that what you're saying?
I want to be around for 200 years, man. I'm thinking of my age. I'm like, hold on a second here. What the hell's going on here? What do you mean I only have half my life left? I don't think so, pal. I want to keep going. I don't care. I also don't want to be an old geezer, but I want to keep going.
That's
man. So
I know the community will be into that. They want listen, community. That's the last thing. Tell us in the comments of wherever, I don't know, on iTunes or tell us on Twitter. Would you support Phil living to 200 years, and would you want to live that long with him as well? Would you want to be frozen at the same time to keep listening to Phil D on the first mint from now until 2022, 23 is what we're aiming for. I love it. Phil D, thanks again, and welcome back. Great to have you back on the show, and we'll be back next week with more First Mint.
So good to be back, and I can't wait.